Hey guys, Caleb here with DSLR Video Shooter, and today we're finally checking out the brand new Focus monitor from SmallHD. As soon as I could, I clicked on the pre-order button for this monitor. For those who don't know, this is a 5-inch monitor from SmallHD that has some unique accessories that we'll get into here in a second. It has a resolution of 1280 by 720. It is a 10-bit monitor and it has a brightness of 800 nits. And to put that into perspective, the iPhone 7, the maximum brightness you're going to get out of that phone is around 700 nits. So it's a very bright monitor, about double what you'll find on most monitors when it comes to brightness. If you do pick one of these up in the box, you will find the monitor itself, a very unique swivel U bracket system, a cold shoe mount for mounting to that bracket, a custom micro to micro HDMI cable and another micro to full HDMI, and finally a female full HDMI to female full HDMI. You'll also find these clever little cable clips that attach to the rear of the monitor for cable management, a screen protector, and finally, if you chose the power kit option, you'll also receive a special cable for powering your camera from the monitor, and a little bit on that later. As I started to set the monitor up, I started to notice all the small details that SmallHD really focused on. A big feature with this monitor is it can flip, giving you a selfie mode, and it'll auto-rotate the image. And to make this work, SmallHD includes this U bracket, which you see right here. It's kind of a half U, but essentially it'll attach to the side of the monitor. It actually has two little pins you line up, which makes it a no slip option, which is awesome. Once you have the monitor mounted, you can snug things up to your desired friction. And as you see here, I kind of like it a little more stiff, and you can just move it around, set it, and you're good to go. For HDMI cables, you have several different options depending on what camera you're going to be using. And the other thing I love is they do include that female HDMI to HDMI, letting you extend the HDMI cable with a longer cable, which is important because you can't use just any cable on this monitor. It has a custom socket or jack, and you need really thin SmallHD cables to get it to work. And the reason for that is SmallHD wanted a really snug jack setup, and HDMI really isn't the greatest connector for that. So it's a really nice, narrow, snug fit. So enough about the cables and whatnot. Let's jump into the monitor and the interface, which is incredible on this device. When you fire it up for the first time, you'll be asked to go ahead and set up your monitor. I'm going to go ahead and hit skip here, and it is a touch screen, which is amazing. And just like that, you'll have an image. Looks just like a normal monitor, but there's so much going on here. The first thing I'd recommend you do is pinch out to zoom out of the main screen and show the primary or home interface, if you will. Right in the center, you will see the actual screen, and we'll be able to modify what shows up on that here in a second. If you swipe to the left, you'll have the primary settings pane where you can jump in and make tons of different settings and customizations to the monitor itself. Pinching back out and swiping to the right, you'll notice that we can add several different scenes, if you will, or setups, and this is amazing. And I'll jump into a couple different uses here in a second. But let's go back to how I have things set up on my Focus. I'm gonna go ahead and tap the middle, and what you can do to bring up custom assist features is just tap the screen and a sidebar will show up, and you'll be able to hit a little plus icon and add anything and everything to this monitor. It really is pretty loaded. So on mine, I have audio meter set up, which is great for cameras that don't have a headphone jack, like the A6500. I can see my audio levels at the bottom of the screen. And once you've added or selected one of your assist features on the side, you can tap it again to bring up specific settings, and you can customize the way it is set up. So as an example, I'm going to tap on waveform to turn it on, and then I'm going to touch the waveform text. Here I have a ton of different settings that I can jump in and modify if I want it to be full screen, where I want it to be positioned on the screen, opacity, all that kind of stuff. So just to show you what you could do as an example, these are the settings that I use for the A6500. I have audio meters, which I pretty much leave on all the time, a waveform that I can add, and I have it set to transparent and full full screen so I can easily see where things are landing when it comes to exposure. Next, I've got a Vectorscope that can be turned on and off if I need to check my skin tones. And finally, I have false color set up on this monitor. So if I flip things around and I'm vlogging, I can just quickly tap that and double check my skin exposure levels. And that's pretty much it for the main setup I use. But here are a couple ideas for how you can use those additional scenes or other screens. So I'm going to tap the center of the screen to get rid of the sidebar and pinch to jump out to the home screen. I'm going to swipe over to the right, and I've created two more specifically for specific assist features. The first is a full screen waveform. So if all I want to do is get a big honking waveform on here, I've got that set up as its own screen. And what's really cool is you can turn things on and off and modify the settings, and it'll remember all of that. So I've set it to full screen and I've turned the waveform on, and once I leave that scene or that page, it's going to remain just like that. So as you can see here, boom, big juicy waveforms ready to go. Alternatively, I can pinch and move over to my next page, which is or at least as big as I could get it, Vectorscope for checking my skin tones. And you can do this with any setting. So if you don't want to sit there turning on and turning off different settings, create a separate page just for that setting. And there's so much you can do for here. Another example would be LUTs. This monitor can handle LUTs. You can upload LUTs to a little SD card. So lots and lots of flexibility. And I love that SmallHD has given all this to us at a lower end monitor for them, which is really impressive. So now let's get down to the power and how power works on this monitor. It is powered off of Sony MPF batteries. If you pick up the power kit, you'll get one in there. Just be warned that if you're planning on flipping the monitor up and around, make sure you get either Sony MPF 550 or 750 batteries. The 970 batteries are going to be too big to be able to rotate. They'll still work like this, but if you flip the screen around, you're going to run into some problems. And then another huge feature with this monitor, of course, is it can output power to your camera or really any device. So there's a small power jack output, and SmallHD does sell battery adapters that you can purchase separately. The only problem with this is it's so expensive. It's $60, and that's before shipping. So if you're gonna have several different camera systems, that might get a little pricey. I did find out, however, that you can use your own cables and adapters. You just wanna make sure you have a specific connector that I'll put on the screen somewhere. And that's what I have set up here. I'm not using the SmallHD sanctioned cable. So it works pretty well, although I would go with a SmallHD solution because the cables are just the right length to reach your camera, and this is kind of a gangly setup, and the cables are pretty long. Speaking of power, on the top right of the screen or the bottom, depending on how you configure your monitor, you will find what's remaining in your battery, and SmallHD is using voltage here and not any level or times, so you'll have to kind of learn some voltage there. I have found that around 6.8 volts is where the monitor and or camera would turn off. So just something to keep in mind as your voltage begins to drop and get close to 6.8, consider stopping the recording and swapping out batteries. And that brings us to the pros and cons. I'm going to start with the things I didn't like about the monitor. The first is the one we just kind of talked about, the way it displays battery life. It really should show some kind of battery level indicator, or even better, how much time is remaining on the actual batteries given the current power consumption. And I have no idea why they went with this particular method. There's even question marks, and it says battery 1 and 2, even though there's only one battery. So it might just be they had to get this thing shipped, and I'm sure we'll see that change in a future firmware update, which is another feature of this monitor. The next one is a small one, but I'd prefer it to be bigger, and that is to have a full screen Vectorscope that I can punch in on. I'd love to get a big, fat, juicy Vectorscope that I could see a very large center zero color point and make sure that my whites are indeed truly white. And the last one is there's no DC input jack. So if you want to power this thing off of AC wall power, you're going to have to find a way to get power to the battery jack on the back, and there's really no way to just plug in a cable. And that brings us to the pros, which far outweigh everything on the cons list, and it's just the price. This is the best under or around $500 monitor for single shooters out there. The amount of assist features is ridiculous. The interface is incredible, and you're getting a lot of assist features you won't find together on a monitor in this price range. Another big one, which I didn't spend a lot of time talking about because other people have covered it and it's pretty straightforward, you can flip this thing around and face it forward and use it as a vlogging setup, which kind of leads into the next little thing I love, and it really is a big thing, and that is that it solves so many problems that small cameras have. For instance, this camera right here, the A6500, you guys know this, I've told you so many times. If you're going to be in front of the camera, not behind it, you're screwed. You can't see your settings. You can't see if the camera is even recording. You can't see anything with your audio levels. It's rough. So with this monitor, I can see my audio levels. I can see that I'm getting some kind of level. I can check my exposure. And a little pro tip, if you turn the beep on your camera, you'll be able to hear that it started recording and when it stops. So this monitor is just fantastic for cameras like this. It pretty much adds all the stuff we're missing, and of course we have that headphone jack too, which is great. So at the end of the day, if you have $500, you're not going to do better than this monitor for these specs. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below if you've picked one up and if you have any concerns. Otherwise, you can watch fresh videos here at DSLR Video Shooter every single week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.